In today's webinar, you're going to learn how to build links faster, how to rank higher on Google, and how to even outsmart your competitors using AI. Today, I'm going to be sitting down with SEO expert Steve Toth, and he's going to be sharing some of the cutting-edge strategies that can completely transform your SEO game. We're going to discuss strategies that you probably haven't heard before, unless you subscribe to his newsletter already and have read all his stuff, in which case, great, you're going to get to see it live. If you don't know already, SEO Notebook, Steve's newsletter, is one of the very few SEO newsletters that I personally subscribe to and read regularly. What makes it so good is that each one is just like a specific topic that just tells you what to do. And it's really simple and easy to follow, which is awesome. And they're not long and they're always actionable. So Steve, welcome to our show. And is there anything about yourself that you'd like our audience to know that I didn't mention?
No, just thanks for having me. First of all, Joy, it's great to catch up again and speak with you after maybe a few months. But yeah, super excited to be here. Basically, I run SEO Notebook, which is my newsletter, and I'm also the CEO of Notebook Agency, which is our agency out of Toronto, which typically focuses on SaaS businesses, but it's more or less about niching down on specific strategies if we can, essentially roll those out. So that's a Notebook Agency for that.
And I say our audience is probably not near Toronto for the most part, but if you are, for anybody in the GTA, Steve actually has events that he's doing as well that I try to regularly go to because we never really had any in Toronto until he started doing them. So I think it's SEO IRL, right? Is that the website, Steve?
Yeah, clearly I need to hire you as my PR person because I forgot to mention that. It's a little bit in the business. So yeah, it's SEOIRL.com. We're hosting the next event in October in Toronto. So there's not too many details about that on the site yet. We're just firming up the date and the venue. But it should be into a 2-day event next year, which is new for us and right in the heart of downtown Toronto. So yeah, if you want more info, you can sign up for the list at SEOIRL.com for that.
Yeah, probably worth going for, even if you're not local, right? You can hop on a plane and come.
We have people from all over the world there.
Especially if you're American, traveling to Canada right now, your dollar is worth so much here, you want to do that. So, all right.
Yeah, you got to come. Like, I got to consult you, give you some consulting hours on how to promote stuff for me.
All good. So let's start. We want to talk a lot about AI today because I feel like, Steve, that's what you've been kind of spending all of your time on. And you've specifically been talking a lot about ChatGPT and how to make custom ChatGPTs to basically help you do SEO better and smarter. And I feel like small business owners, which is the majority of our audience, they're often overwhelmed by SEO. And AI is kind of daunting, right? So if you're a small business owner, what is a simple way that you can kind of start using AI just to get familiar with it if you're not, a technical nerd like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, we just use it to solve problems essentially, right? So whether that's something like, getting better deliverability on our emails or writing featured snippets, analyzing Google patents, or even just coming up with blog topics, something as simple as that. Basically what we can do is create agents, and which is the easiest way that we can do that is just through something using GPT bots. And essentially what that is just a specific set of instructions that creates a bot that's designed to essentially solve a specific task. So I've actually created one called Prompt Buddy that basically gets you started with creating bots. You would just say, like, what is the kind of bot you want to create? Like, so let's say, I run a plumbing business and I want to talk about, different blog topics related to plumbing. You could obviously ask ChatGPT that too, but you could create a bot that, went even deeper on that. So there's just all kinds of different things that we can create. And essentially it's just a way to leverage leverage AI and basically just be more productive with whatever you kind of want to do. So, and I know we've got some cool stuff planned today, so we won't get too much into the details of the specific ones, but I'll just kind of expand as we go along.
So just to be clear, you use bots to write bots. You don't have to be some crazy high-level programmer in order to do this. You could be a plumber and still kind of follow some of this actual advice we're going through, right?
We do use bots to create bots, and there was a tweet, I think, by popular sort of AI person that said like the hottest coding language in the world right now is English. So that's kind of what I love, because like I'm not a hardcore coder by any means, but ChatGPT and the advent of generative AI have just opened so many doors with respect to that. And I think ultimately, what I'm trying to do through SEO Notebook is make the production of that more accessible and essentially give people tools to do their jobs better.
Yeah. So I have to ask you, since you're an SEO, I'm an SEO, obviously some of these tools is making our jobs much easier, which kind of poses the question, do you personally think AI is a threat to the SEO industry? Like, do you think it's going to put people in SEO out of jobs?
Well, I think that, looking at my own agency, we have actually expanded our team in the, last 2 years, which has seen, this generative AI trend, take full hold of the industry. But at the same time, like I expect more out of my team than I ever have in the past, right? So I think any kind of low level, like non-skilled jobs are definitely at risk. But when it comes to, jobs that require critical thinking and analysis, I think those are the types of things that, we're not there yet with generative AI. And, generative AI is essentially like, the summary of kind of like the most common information, right? The most predictable words that come after. And, when we look at what we actually want to create, we want to not be just normal and predictable. We want to be, cutting edge. And I think there's still definitely a place for humans to play a part in that.
For sure. I think it's harder if you're looking for like a cookie cutter package. I feel like when I started in local SEO, you had the bronze, the silver, and the gold, right?
Yeah.
And if you're on bronze, maybe you're not getting links every month, but if you're on gold, you're getting 5 links a month. And I feel like that systemized way of doing SEO isn't working like it used
No,
to.
and I know that that's not something that you do or that I do. Like all of our plans essentially are, bespoke and tailored to the business. Every business is different. Every website is at a different stage of maturity. Every GBP has a different set of reviews, is filled out differently. Like there's a lot that goes into scoping an SEO project properly. And I think that, yeah, definitely like where it's just got like a checklist of, we'll optimize 10 title tags, I will publish 3 blogs a month and 2 links, and that's your package. Like that one size fits all is just, I think gone in the rearview mirror now.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to start asking you about some of your specific bots that you've done and things that you've mentioned in your newsletters. So this first one that I was going to ask you about, and by the way, feel free to screen share if you'd like, Steve, like if you want to show how one of these works. I think for a couple that I've got here, I'd actually love to demo them live. So I'm going to ask our audience to give us some examples when we get to those. But this particular one that I wanted to start with was around creating a quiz for social media, which I found particularly fascinating because social media is something that we are seeing way more prevalent on Google in the last year. So like lots of searches on Google is showing social media posts now, whereas they weren't before. So I think that Google's highlighting social media more, but the average small business has no idea what to post about. Like they're like what do I put on Instagram? What do I put on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever? So I was really intrigued with this bot. Can you walk us through how a small business with a small following, so think like, a restaurant or a plumber or something, can use this tool to be successful?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to share my screen in just a moment, but I'll first give credit where credit is due for this idea and where this note was inspired. I was in the Chiang Mai conference this past November, and we were at a link building mastermind put on by somebody named Jabez Rubin. And I was sitting at the table with a fellow named James Dooley, who, if you don't know him, he's like really prolific in terms of being, his business, and his lead generation is, probably one of the biggest, lead generation companies in the UK. And he was describing essentially this lead generation strategy that they have, whereby they run quizzes that, ask something like, are you ready to sell your business, or like, targeting like the business owner. And then in the questions of the quiz, they're essentially generating leads for not just one business, but potentially many businesses, right? So things like HR consultants, accountants, even SEO agencies, like asking questions about their marketing, asking questions about is their tax streamlined, etc. So let me share my screen and just show you a bot that I created where you can essentially take the different verticals that you want to target with these questions, and it's going to prepare a quiz that you could run on social media and essentially generate leads for whoever this quiz is targeted at. So let me just get to the screen share here, and hopefully I will choose the right tab. Yes, I did. All right. Let me know if you can when you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see it on my end.
Cool. So the example here that I have is going to generate leads for a tax advisory, an SEO agency, HR consultants, and back office outsourcing. So you could see like this is, is your business missing opportunities? Find out now, right? So first, the set of lead questions it's going to generate are for tax and accountants, essentially. So things like, do you have a tax strategy to minimize your burden? Have you reviewed your deductions from last year, et cetera? For an SEO agency, might ask questions like, are you appearing on the first page for your key services? Is your website mobile optimized? For an HR company, it might ask like, do you have trouble with your recruiting? Are you conducting regular performance, etc.? And whoever answers, yes or like no to these questions, these are where the leads get funneled, right? So that's sort of just an important thing to realize here. And then, when we're talking about back office outsourcing, it might ask questions like, how much time are you spending on admin tasks, like bookkeeping, payroll, and invoicing, etc. Then it comes up with some hooks for the quiz. Then it comes up with some landing page copy. It comes up with a social media ad based on the attention, interest, desire, action framework. Also a LinkedIn ad. And then it kind of, the ad is administered through something called Score App, which is not a tool. Like I have nothing to endorse here. This is just a really good tool to run these types of quizzes on. And essentially, if you start up with Score App, you can take the questions that this generates for you and start running these quizzes to generate leads for not only your business. Like if you're an agency, this is great because you can generate leads for multiple clients through quizzes like this. Or if you're a business yourself, you can generate leads and run these quizzes. So let's say you had you were a tax advisory service, and then you got together with like an SEO agency, an HR, and a back office outsourcing company. You could all split the cost of running those ads and then get the leads that get generated for them.
Do you have to like incentivize people in some way to fill out the quiz? Like, I don't know about you, but I personally am like overloaded with like feedback requests, like, hey, review us or do this or do that. So I'm curious, like, how do you get the user to actually fill out?
Yeah, I think promising people that they'll get a score, about how well their business is set up to do something, and then promising them that they're going to get like actionable strategies and feedback from that. I think that's a really good way to do that.
That's awesome. And then is there any way to do this on like a video platform like TikTok or YouTube? Because obviously we're talking text here, right?
Yeah, these are text-based things. I guess what you could do is just share the link and then have your Score App link, funnel those people over to that.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to put this out to our people watching. I want to demo one of Steve's bots in a little bit that's going to help build linkable assets. So if you're a business and you're like, I have no idea how to get backlinks, feel free to put your industry or your website into the chat. And I'm going to pick one. So Carrie and Richard, if you guys could star a few, and then we're going to use that when we demo that live. So that is coming up in a little bit. I wanted to ask you, since we're in January, we're at the start of a new year, there's been actually a lot of talk about title tags recently because we released something earlier this week talking about long title tags.
Yeah.
You saw that, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I follow you as well, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, spoiler alert, long title tags, we're big fans. We've been doing this for years, but I didn't realize how how many opinions people had on this topic until we published it this week. But when you were talking about title tags, you were specifically talking about like when to switch years. So, a lot of people put like 2024, 2025 in their title tags, and you had a newsletter that talked about like when you want to do that switch. Can you talk about how you came up with that conclusion and when people should be doing that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the important thing to realize is that sometimes towards that end of the year it's actually good to make that switch for the years preemptively when you start to see traction start to build up for the subsequent year. So back in December, November, that would have been obviously 2025. And what I basically did was utilize the data in Google Search Console to see how many impressions any particular client was getting for the 2025 searches. So basically, when you can see that 2024 impressions are declining and 2025 impressions are increasing and past that tipping point, it's a great time to actually make that change.
Okay, I want to see if Richard can put this image up on screen, just showing what you were referring to. But I know there's like a trend line for 2024 was going down. You don't think it's weird for somebody to search on Google in like December of 2024 though and see 2025 when it hasn't happened yet?
Yeah, I mean, it might be a little weird, but I think when the data speaks to you and suggests that people are actively searching for that, that's when we're sort of making that call.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, I'll say this. I say this a lot. Using data to back up your decisions is something that every marketer should be doing, right? Rather than just saying, oh, I think this, or this looks weird to me. It doesn't mean it'll be weird to everybody, right?
And I think we can say we're in January right now. So if you haven't updated your title tags, run a screaming frog crawl, or if you want to do it even like faster just to see about what's indexed, you can type site:/yourwebsite.com 2024 in title 2024, and that's going to show you all the pages currently on your website that have last year, or you maybe even have to go back to 2023. But so you just basically put site:/your domain in title 2024, and then you'll get a list of index pages that have the last year's year in it, and then you can just kind of go in and make those changes to make sure you're up to date.
Perfect. So we had a question come in from the audience, and I want to try to take these as we go through here. So talking about SEO and AI, she said, I noticed the ChatGPT responses for businesses are not good. Same. What do you think it means for local SEO? Should we be paying attention to ChatGPT?
Yeah, I mean,
or optimizing?
So it's really interesting. And I think, we marketers also live in a bubble where it's like, in certain cases, informational, type of queries, especially queries where you have to do a lot of research, sometimes, ChatGPT provides a better experience. But then when it comes down to talking about our parents or our cousin who's a nurse or an EMT or just these more less, computer focused professions, these folks are still, I think, searching Google for a lot of stuff. And I think certainly when it comes down to local, reviews are just so important. And we don't have that type of same, data reflected in the LLM. So I think, people actually going to the Google business profile and digging through those reviews is a much better way to make a decision on that stuff. So I would say that until we find, LLMs do a good job at, aggregating those reviews and really helping with that type of research, I think that Google is probably still number one in terms of where people are going to go to, fix their leaky pipe, get a painter at the house, fix their roof, etc.
Yeah. So we actually have a video coming out on this in a few weeks. I can't remember the exact date, but I'll give people a sneak preview. We did a look at some of our biggest clients, looked at sites that were getting 1 million organic traffic from Google in a year, and their leads from ChatGPT compared to Google were very minimal. So I do not think we are at the point yet where we should be optimizing for it, because you're going to get a better ROI on Google that has huge market share and tons of traffic. But I actually share a whole bunch of numbers. I don't have them memorized, but it was really bad. The one stat I do remember is that their Yahoo traffic was 36 times their traffic from all AI. So that was funny.
Yeah, that's going to vary on, certain niches. And I think, the
Absolutely.
more tech savvy niches. One thing I will say that's interesting though, and maybe worth noting, just, future thinking as well. When we analyze the session times that come from ChatGPT, Perplexity, et cetera, we actually notice that many of those sessions are a lot more engaged than they are in Google, meaning people are spending more time on the site because essentially they have already answered a lot of the questions that they have back and forth within this chat for taking place on ChatGPT, Gemini, et cetera. So when we actually look at the session times, although the count of sessions may be low, the quality of those sessions through AI are actually quite high, but I still don't think that's, we're even near a tipping point where the majority, not even like you said, the Yahoo searches are outweighing this amount of searches we see on ChatGPT or others LLMs. But I think in the future, when that starts to increase and more awareness comes and all that kind of stuff, that we will see the session times start to be a lot more engaged when they come from LLMs.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm like I always say, I don't have a crystal ball, right? But at this point in time, I think the best ROI is sticking with Google, but that could change. So we're going to do this live demo of your lead magnet tool. Steve, if you want to screen share while you pull that up, I'm just going to do a shout out. We have an event coming up in March. It is virtual. I actually said after the pandemic that I never wanted to do virtual events again, but we realized we have so many people that attended our virtual events during those years that don't live anywhere near where we put them on in person. So we had lots of people from around the world. So we wanted to basically have an event so that no matter where you're located or if you don't want to travel, you can come and get a local U experience. So if you are not already signed up for that, it is happening in March 26th. It'll be an all-day event. We have speakers just like a conference, but it will all be online. And it's only $125. So significantly less than in-person events. So if you haven't got your ticket for that yet, you can check that out. So I've got a bunch of stuff here that people submitted, Steve. I'm trying to find the ones I think would be the most interesting. Let's go with like a really boring industry and then kind of so we'll do self-storage. Self-storage, I mean, like, I think it links to self-storage. That would be an interesting one to look at. So let's use that one for the first demo. What can you create as a self-storage company that people will want to link to?
Sure. So, I mean, this is a live demo, so let's see how we go. But, I think what that whole, let me just, while this sort of comes up, we will basically want to like kind of explain what this bot is doing. So basically we have like a number of linkable asset formats. And, first of all, why would you want links to your website? Well, that creates more authority, more trust with Google. You're more likely to rank if you can get high authority websites or just websites in general, more websites linking to you. So creating these assets is a great way to do that. But what this bot does is you basically give it your topic and it's going to basically go through kind of a list of popular formats and then relate that to your self-storage business. So it also divides them based on like how easy these things are to create, right? So the first one would be like that it generated would be like a moving checklist for moving and decluttering, which I think could be really beneficial to people who are wanting to store stuff after a move, whether they're downsizing or what have you. A guide for unit sizes, maybe that's I don't know how much that would be necessary, but things not to store. People might be Googling that, and that might be also really good information. So I would say 2 of these 3 are pretty good, and they're also very low barrier to entry. So why not create those types of things? Then it also recommended a pricing calculator, a data study based on like the most expensive and cheapest self-storage throughout the country. And then which storage facilities are the safest. That could also be like a data study. Harder to do would be like an interactive map. Self-storage horror stories. I don't know if we'd want to do that one, but environmental impact or like let's see, AI powered self-storage unit finder. So maybe you would say like, I'm in Toronto and I've got to store a piano and, you know, this, that, and the other, and it's going to go and find like the best location and thing for you. So I would say, like, you know, you can run this multiple times to get even more ideas, but right off the bat, like a checklist for moving and decluttering, I think that would be a no-brainer for a storage site that I'd want to do. And then maybe like items not to store, super easy, and then maybe a pricing calculator. And, you know, with AI, we can also create these types of calculators a lot more easily. So it's never been a better time to kind of get into that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do one more. Can we do one for pest control?
Sure. Let's
felt like that might come up with some interesting stuff. Not my favorite industry to look at, you know, like I kind of avoid our clients that are in pest control. Like all those pages about spiders.
I think there was somebody from Orkin who was actually subscribed to SEO the other day. They sent me.
Yes.
So if you're watching, maybe this one's for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the linkable assets that it's creating are DIY to pest control. You know, basically things that you can do to prevent, you know, pests in your home. Seasonal pest control cheat sheet. So like, what would you want to like look out for in the summer, in the winter, etc. Natural repellents that would probably appeal to certain demographic of people who, you know, were a bit more cautious about using chemicals and whatnot. An identification chart. I would just say use Google Lens for this. But anyway, interactive map. Are ultrasonic pest repellers a scam? I think that would be actually really interesting to dig into the data about some of these products that, you know, are essentially competition to a pest control company, right? Because if you're evaluating solutions as like, do I want to call Orkin to come and you know, clear my home of pests versus, you know, am I researching an ultrasonic pest controller? You know, it might be really great to have like a in-depth article on that. So you can kind of see, like, as we go down the list, you know, it generates a bunch of ideas for you. Of course, not all of them are going to be like, you know, home runs, but if we generate this multiple times, you're for sure going to get a handful of ideas that you can basically create. So that's a linkable asset generator. And we use this for our clients in our linkable assets all the time. So hopefully the users can get a good value out of that one.
Yeah, and I think we posted the link in the chat there, so everybody should have a link to it. We had a good question here from Tim. What's the difference between like this tool that you're using versus like just going to ChatGPT and being like, "Hey, give me ideas for a linkable asset"?
Great question. So when you're prompting, right? One of the, like, I probably prompt at least 5 to 10 hours a week, just in terms of like preparing for SEO Notebook, working on a lot of the processes that we have at the agency. Something I just think is time spent on ChatGPT is time well spent, is what I say. But you know, when you're prompting, one of the best ways to get a great output is to give examples. So in the back end of these bots, we essentially have examples of linkable assets that the bot can mirror its answers upon and like customize to each industry. So instead of like having to gather, you know, a bunch of examples yourself, load that into a chat, you know, just play with it, run it. Like whenever I release a bot, I'm running it like at least 50 times, like minimum, to basically keep improving on the outputs. So, you know, I'd say take the time that I've spent doing this and use that, or, you know, just compare it yourself and see what you like. But essentially, whether you're doing it with a bot or you're doing it yourself, definitely, you know, give it examples of things that you like, and then it will produce a better output.
Awesome. So one of the things that you talked about in one of your other newsletters was in regards to versus content. So this is something that I felt was really applicable to HVAC. So I'm using an HVAC example. One of the things that we did for one of our HVAC clients was create all kinds of content around different brands, right? So like, what's the difference between Lennox and Carrier, for example? And these search terms get so much traffic. They're really great to optimize for. So Steve has another bot that helps you basically optimize for these types of queries. And I was wondering if we could live demo that specific query, like Lennox versus Carrier. I'll put the spelling in the chat
Sure.
here.
So this started with a note, actually pre-ChatGPT. And the whole idea behind this note, and this, I'll also give credit where it's due to a friend of mine named Kapil Ochani, who came up with this strategy where essentially you want to use a very specific wording when talking about featured snippets or even any query with respect to verses. And you always want to say something like the main difference between Carrier and Lennox is. And when you use those words, the main difference between, Google's like, oh, I love that. Like, it's so compact. It answers the question perfectly. Let's show that for the featured snippet. So it's just a really great sort of hack to get that snippet. And let's cross our fingers and hope that the prompt that I put into my snippet brain bot remembers that those instructions. But let's Lennox versus Carrier and see if it uses that main difference nomenclature. So here we go. There it does. It did it.
Okay.
So this bot that I created is actually accessible at snippetbrain.com. It just redirects to this bot right now. But essentially, it uses something called a declarative sentence, and it also reduces the dependencies between words to make the output ultra efficient for Google to understand. And one of the instructions I put in the back of this bot is that whenever we have like verses in that keyword, it's always using that text, the main difference between. And it sounds like you've used this, Joy, and you could attest to this working. Yeah, and we use it too all the time. When we use these words, the main difference between, we're just killing it with snippets. So that's one of the features of Snippet Brain, which you can access at snippetbrain.com for now. And then it's a really great tool that has a lot of these hacks sort of built in the back end to it.
Yeah, so I have some questions about that. So featured snippets, it's funny. I remember when they first came out and there were so many marketers that were like, oh, featured snippets are like the death of traffic to websites. And, Google's going to show the answer, therefore nobody's going to click to go to your site. We've seen time and time again that is not true. Like, getting a featured snippet is gold for traffic. Like, you will get so much traffic if you take that over. Have you guys found the same thing as well?
100%. Yeah, I didn't get that at all. And it's just like, let the data talk, right? Like, look at your click-through rate there were people literally saying at times where you don't want the featured snippet because, the answer in a way. But anytime I looked in my Google Search Console and I looked at the click-through rate for when we had the snippet versus when we're number 2 or number 3, it's always higher. So I would just, say, like, let the data speak and, use a tool like Snippet Brain to help you generate the types of sentences that, Google wants. And if I could just give a quick little kind of sneak preview, we are working on a tool that will be eventually available on Snippet Brain, where we take, one keyword, we look at the top 3 results and all the different featured snippets that they're ranking for. And then we write featured snippets for, all those eligible questions, either by modifying a section of text on our article or creating a new paragraph in that article to target. So essentially you could take like one keyword and make your whole page eligible for like 20 or 30 featured snippets at once, depending on how many are ranking for in total with those top 3.
So we have a question here. Can you put in a website into the tool, or do you have to put in like a query for it to work?
So you can do it in 2 ways. You can put in a query. So one of the examples I always use is like, how fast is an F1 car? And it's going to tell you like certain miles per hour, kilometers an hour, like which kind of tracks they're fastest on, et cetera. Or what you can do is you can take an existing paragraph, put it into Snippet Brain, and it's going to make it a lot more compact and, like I said, declarative, right? So that it's kind of like, a very concise answer that Google is going to have confidence in. And one other just little tidbit about featured snippets that was actually documented by Google is that as of 2022, Google started to verify the facts inside featured snippets. So whenever you're writing a featured snippet, just make sure that the facts that you're stating are going to be found on other highly authoritative websites and that they match. Because if you're, even if you're perfectly optimized and you've got like that sentence in the right structure and all that stuff, if your facts aren't correct, you're not going to rank for that snippet.
So that's a tool that I have not yet tried, your fact checking one. I would love to demo that one in a little bit here. So is there if anybody has a query or an example that we could use for that, it just needs a query in order to fact check it, or what does it?
Snippet Brain actually has that work into it that it does facts, but we have another bot which I released earlier this month that essentially extracts the facts and claims within an article and evaluates those against the given academic consensus. So that was a whole nother kind of development that took place in SEO. As you know, we move super fast, but there is a fellow by the name of Mark Williams Cook who discovered a Google endpoint, which basically was like a whole nother leak, except he kept it to himself and he didn't publish it. He was saying that basically there's a criteria for checking the consensus of the facts in your article, and Google essentially giving you a score based on how factual your article is. So what I did was create a bot where you paste in your article content, and on a fact by fact, claim by claim basis, it extracts those and evaluates it, based on the general consensus for each of those facts and claims. So probably a little bit in depth to get into that one, but essentially for Snippet Brain, we are validating to make sure that those facts are generally true as to the best of our ability.
This is awesome. So Snippet Brain is currently free. Like, is it going to stay that way? I feel like from the amount of work you're putting into it, I wouldn't expect it to stay free, but it's awesome.
It has over 5,000 chats so far. So probably going to hit 10,000, I'd say, within the next couple months in terms of how many people have actually used the tool. And as of right now, it's totally free, and it's pretty much earning snippets at like a 40% clip just right out of the box and putting them onto your site. There are some plans for a tool down the road, but even that will have like a free tier to it.
That's amazing. I have one more question on this before we move to the fact checking thing, because I'd love to demo that one. In regards to featured snippets, one of the things I've noticed that I find kind of fascinating is that you could have a featured snippet and then there's an AI overview above it, and the two don't match. And that like boggles my mind, because it will, link one website in the featured snippet and then link a totally different website in the AI overview. What have you found is kind of like the disconnect there? Like when you're optimizing for a featured snippet, is it a separate set of things you need to do than optimizing for an AI overview?
Well, I think the whole cost of retrieval and making the text efficient for Google to understand is also going to help you get into that AI overview, because essentially it's a lot of processing power that Google has to do to understand websites, and it ultimately wants to reward the websites that provide the most concise and easy to process answer. So there is some overlap, but I'll definitely acknowledge that what we see in the AI overviews can differ between what's in the featured snippet. But one of the other questions that we kind of tabled as a discussion point here is like, are featured snippets still, worth optimizing for? And I'll just jump ahead on that one a little bit more and say that, let the data speak as well, right? If you go into a tool like Ahrefs, SEMrush, Search Atlas, et cetera, and you look at the keywords and, what type of SERPs are showing, you will see that, still there's a lot of featured snippet opportunities where there aren't even AI overviews. So whether you're on the fence about thinking, well, our snippet's going to go the way of being totally replaced by AI overviews, I'd say always look at your own data, because that could also be very niche specific, and just evaluate the opportunities based on your own websites and the keywords that you're ranking for.
Absolutely. I personally don't love AI overviews. I mean, it's personal preference, but one of the things that irritates me about them as a marketer is how much they vary. Like you'll get one and then 2 days later, it's like something else.
Yeah.
Whereas like featured snippets don't change like that. They stick a lot
Well,
better.
I mean, isn't that generative AI? Like you put
Yes.
prompt the same question and you're getting a different answer every time. I think
Yeah. So annoying.
we're still so much in the infancy of all this stuff that it's like we're going to look back in a few years and be like, we really thought those were quality results when it's literally like a different answer every time. Yeah, I think that is definitely problematic, but we're still so much in the infancy of all this stuff.
Absolutely. So let's like, okay, so for the fact checking one, if you want to screen share, Steve, like can you put in stuff like that, like what's the average cost of lawn care in Dallas? Like would it fact check that? Because that's a thing that we optimize a lot for small businesses, cost queries.
So the way that the bot is set up, which I'll just share right now, is that we'd actually need an article. If somebody wants to paste an article into the chat,
perfect.
and we could put that in, then we can definitely try it. What I'll do just to start with the demo is just show the example article that we have loaded into the back end. So I'm just going to click on show me an example into this consensus fact checking agent. And it's going to take an article that talks about dietary guidelines being hazardous to your health and basically extracting the different facts and claims like in the article. So that's kind of the first step that's happening right now. But if we have another article, we can also run that through it as well. And at this point, it's still trying to extract all the facts. And then what it's going to do after that is create a table to evaluate, whether these facts are aligned with a consensus, right? So in cases where, it's saying something like the committee warns against saturated fats despite new research suggesting they're not harmful, it's going to say acknowledge that the study still cautions against against excessive intakes of saturated fats. So basically like they're kind of cherry picking something from that report and not being, completely aligned with the consensus. And then the bot, basically gives it a way that it could be more aligned by saying that the guidelines still advise against excessive intake of saturated fats. So basically it's going to go through like the entire article and evaluate how well the article is aligned with consensus. And in this case, it's saying that, 67% of the facts and claims are fully aligned, with a whole rating of moderately aligned. It goes through a basic EAT valuation, which it's got the EAT guidelines from the Google Quality Raters uploaded to the back end of it. And then, basically, I would say if you want your article to perform better, go through some of the different things that are, not fully aligned and heed the bot's, recommendations on bringing them in line with the consensus.
So I put one in the chat that I think would be a great one to throw in. It's a Precision Garage Door URL. So I threw it in the private chat there, Steve. But that would be one that I'd love to know because this is something we tell clients to do a lot. Like publish prices, talk about like how much it costs for a garage door, et cetera. So I'd love to know what it has to say about stuff like this.
Sure. So I copied the text. It might take a second to, there we go. I just had a bookmarklet that copied like all the text. So
nice.
I did that really quickly. And it's going to put in the footer stuff too, but let's see what it does. So the first, I'm looking for fact checking. Live typing is always fun.
Yeah, this is something I've always wondered because we have a lot of clients that list prices. And I've seen also like this for lawyers quite a bit too. Like they talk about average settlements and things like that. And I find sometimes if you go way too outside the general consensus, it does exactly what you're saying. Like it makes it worse for ranking.
So here, you could probably tell me because I don't work in the garage door niche, but it is saying that it is fully aligned and matches estimates from sites like Home Advisor, Angie, Bob Vila, etc. Yeah. So this is actually, a good thing for this garage door article in that the ranges are fairly in line with what we see on sites like that, and basically in the LLM's corpus. One thing they mentioned here is that location affects cost, with the Southwest having the lowest average prices. I think maybe having it saying if we could cite some information from to back up that claim, it might be a little bit more aligned. But overall, whoever submitted this article, I would say did a fairly good job at aligning that with the consensus. So nice work.
That's really awesome. Somebody had a question about the copy text clip that you used just now to copy. Is that something that you created, or is that a tool?
No, it's just a JavaScript bookmarklet. Basically, so one of the cool things that I can just mention right now is that I have a note which we could share later on, is like about how to create bookmarklets with ChatGPT. So if you don't know what a bookmarklet is, it's essentially a bookmark that has a bit of code in the URL field. So this is JavaScript code that enabled me to do that copying. And instead of the URL field for that bookmark, you paste that JavaScript, and then it can do a bunch of things for you, right? So you can just ask ChatGPT, write me a JavaScript bookmarklet that will copy the text from a web page, and it's going to create that JavaScript for you, which you then can then just paste in the URL field and perform actions like that.
Is there a link or anything to the one that you're using that you want to share in the chat, or is it not?
I can literally share the actual JavaScript. I don't have I don't have a link to that, but I mean, hey, like if people just want to do that really quickly, it's
yeah, that's cool. There we go, Richard. I don't know if you can put that in the chat, but I've seen these. Sometimes people will like have them on different pages on their site where they put the code. So I wasn't sure.
Yeah, but you know, in general, like copying stuff, scraping stuff from web pages, just ask ChatGPT to create those bookmarklets for you. They can be incredibly time saving. Like you could, you know, extract all the URLs from a page. You can get all the title tags from a SERP. Like you can get all the meta descriptions from a SERP. Like there's, you know, literally tons of different things that we can do. I have ones that copy titles from YouTube, etc. There's all kinds of neat things you can do with those.
Awesome. If you have questions for Steve too, please put them in the chat. We are getting close to the end here, so I want to make sure we get a chance to ask audience questions before I move on with mine. There was a couple questions here about your tools. So Snippet Brain, does it work in other languages?
I only have it in English at this point, so the answer would be probably not. But
okay,
you can always create your own.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And then a quick clarification. So the content that we're using for verifying the fact checking stuff, it has to be outside of your domain. Like it's not looking at you to verify. It's looking at external sources, right?
It's, well, I mean, as best as what we can do, right? So when Google, when I mentioned that featured snippets are checked against facts, Google is literally literally checking for these facts against authoritative websites. While we can't do that within ChatGPT, what we could ask is a question like, you know, what's the given academic consensus for, is the Earth a sphere or is it flat, right? So it's going to be like pretty, factual when it comes to a lot of these things, because that information is contained within the corpus. So essentially, we're doing our best to understand, you know, what is true and what's not. But I mean, is it 100% perfect? No, but is it going to get you closer to consensus? Probably.
So this is a good question. The fact checker, can it be country based? Because yeah, that's true. Like those things might differ based on where you are located.
Right now, you would probably have to say to the GPT that you wanted to limit that to a specific country.
Got it. And this is a great question. Who do you follow for AI stuff?
Honestly, like I don't really follow very many SEOs, to be honest. Like there's a very short list of people, you know, the people who've spoke at SEO IRL, like you, Mike King, Ferry Kazoni, Matt Diggity, Kyle Roof. These are folks that I tend to follow. I don't spend a lot of time reading SEO articles or, search engine journals, search engine land. What I'm doing is I'm solving the own problems that we have at our agency. And if I consider this, like I'm following, what my employees are talking about, because we have really amazing conversations and all that. So I think you can kind of get to a certain point in your SEO career where you're not like constantly like hunting, like what's the next big secret I'm going to uncover, but you're working within that, knowledge that, you've created in your own snippet brain per se, and really just like looking to use what you've built to solve your own problems. So I don't really have a good answer for that one, unfortunately, BB.
Yeah, actually, I think that's a great answer, though. Like, honestly, trying things yourself is most cases more valuable than reading something that somebody else came up with, right? So that's the approach we take. And I'm with you. There's a small circle of people that I follow. That's why I said, like, your newsletter is one of very few that I actually subscribe to. I unsubscribed to the whopping majority of SEO newsletters that I used to read years ago. But yours made the cut. So, and it's because you put actionable stuff in there and it's like easy to follow, right? So kudos to Steve for having, I think, the best newsletter in SEO. Outside of Sterling Skies. I mean, I'm super biased. I think ours is in the top 2, but we'll say that.
We're talking about the top 2 Canadian SEOs. I mean, you're looking.
There you go.
There's no question.
That's so funny. We'll have to optimize for that. Something that I will kind of tease that's coming up, we are going to be releasing a premiere video in February. This is taking me months to put together, so I promise it'll be worth your time. If you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, you'll get notified when this is coming up. I don't know the exact date yet, but there is a substantial change to Google's algorithm that I've been tracking for the last 6 months that nobody's talking about. I'm going to be talking about that specifically next month, and you'll want to see it if you work with multi-location businesses or if you care at all about your organic traffic if you're a local business.
I'm gonna go microwave some popcorn.
It's really good. I'm telling you, it's like I've been waiting on releasing it because I wanted to try it on more clients and more clients and more clients, just because it was so counter to what I've been doing for the last decade. And I was like, this can't be right. So really crazy stuff. I will be showing who it's hurting, how to fix it. There's actually a fix for it. But that's something that we'll be doing in February. And I don't unfortunately have the date yet because I literally was writing the script for it this morning. I'm trying to put it all together and dumb things down to make it easy to digest. So
it sounds like, honestly, like that's something I would love to feature in SEO Notebook. So one time we could potentially, collaborate there.
I'll totally take you up on that. So yes, I will tell you as soon as we have the date nailed down, which I'm hoping to have next week. So this is one of my favorite parts of the webinar, where I'm basically going to throw some rapid fire questions at Steve and give him 30 seconds to answer. If you have any good ones that you'd like to add to my list, feel free to put them into the chat and I'll try to get those in as well. But these are very simple questions that require simple answers. So I'll start with this one. What is the number one mistake that businesses make with SEO today?
Probably not having the right intent geared towards the page that they're ranking for. Like when we speak with prospects, sometimes they're vying for a keyword, but then we look at their page compared to the pages that aren't ranking, and they just don't have the right structure, page type. They're not answering questions clearly early on in the content. So really probably misalignment with intent, I would say, is a very common SEO mistake, and you're really not going to have a chance to compete if you're not doing that correctly.
All right. Next question. Remember, 30 seconds. AI and SEO, is it overhyped or is it the future?
Well, utilizing AI for SEO is certainly not overhyped. I think it's something that every agency needs to do to compete with, all the new capabilities that we have. Is AI search overhyped? Well, that's a really tough one to answer because I think it's niche dependent, and people like my mom and my sister and my cousins are really not paying any attention to this. But when you talk to a marketer, they're like, tomorrow is the last day anyone will ever Google anything. So I think there's got to be kind of like some balance in between there, and also looking at your niche.
I couldn't agree more. What is an SEO trend that nobody's really talking about?
Well, I think that, in my circles, we're talking about it, but those are fairly small circles, is this idea about cost of retrieval when it comes to actually processing content and making your entire website easier to understand. When I created Snippet Brain, I essentially wanted to reduce the dependencies between words to make the content super efficient for Google to process. And when you do that across your entire site, you're effectively making it cheaper for Google to understand what you are and what you're talking about, and it's going to reward you for that.
Okay, I have to add this one because you keep talking about him and he's here. So Mark's question, Sam Altman's prediction of getting to AGI in 2025, agree or disagree?
That's a tough one. I have been watching a lot of YouTube videos and podcasts just on this stuff in general. I probably think that we're a little bit away from that. I mean, there's just so much knowledge that specialists have when we're talking about general intelligence. Certainly, one of the big developments lately is DeepSeek and training a model on synthetic data, and then basically using the cost savings that we have from not having to train models in this traditional sense and putting that towards evaluating the output based on laws of physics or the actual laws of the United States or what have you, and creating more factual outputs. I think we'll have expert intelligence with respect to certain niches, but general artificial intelligence, I think that's pretty ambitious.
All right.
Here, yeah.
Yeah, well, Mark threw another really good one. This one wasn't even on my list, but this is actually a great question. What is a bad use of AI in SEO?
Hey, ChatGPT, write me a title tag that's going to rank on Google. Hey, ChatGPT, write me an article that's going to rank on Google. You're an SEO expert. What should I do with my website? Like, all those things are just going to, give you misguided answers. It's much better to give ChatGPT data or examples and really challenge it, with saying something like, hey, here's the Google guidelines. How can I better optimize my site to meet these guidelines, versus just asking Google to create an SEO optimized web page.
Good answer. All right, here's a really good one. What is your favorite underrated SEO tool?
Google search, I would say. The answer is hiding in plain sight. When you're talking about things like auto suggest, people also ask related searches. There is so much information that is in there that I think people don't often, they get too bogged down in going through tools and don't use their eyes to see like what Google's actually ranking. So I'd say Google search is definitely my number one underrated SEO tool.
We're like agreeing on everything here. This is not normal. Okay. If you had to focus on just one SEO strategy, you have a limited budget in 2025, what would it be?
One of the ones that we always focus on at Notebook Agency is trying to speak towards like the specific verticals. So sometimes businesses, they have a product, right? So for example, we've got a client that does indoor maps, and those indoor maps can be oriented towards shopping malls, offices, airports, etc. And like speaking to that demographic or like that specific type of customer through a landing page that's very much tailored towards their business. That's like a strategy that we always look at first if that's an option, right? So that'd be one that I always like to sort of knock off my list when I'm doing SEO.
That's awesome. I know we're at time, Steve, and I want to be really mindful of your time. So thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time. If you're not already subscribed to SEO Notebook, do make sure you do that today. You are missing out on some of the most actionable SEO advice out there. Also, if you liked this webinar, if you want to see more content like this, do make sure you like the video and subscribe to our channel. And also let us know in the comments what tip you liked best. What are you going to go implement? We'd love to hear from you. Steve, any last words?
Yeah, if you want to work with me, it's SEOnotebook.com. Just reach out. I'd be happy to speak with anybody who wants, especially if you have a SaaS website or are looking for more organic SEO. That's more of a specialty for us. And yeah, we'd love to kind of just collaborate with our clients and do great work.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Steve. Until next month, see you guys later.
Thanks, Joy. Take care.